right, let's start with your hands down and your feet neutral underneath your body. This is position 1. Position 2, leave your feet alone. Hands come up in what we call guard. I want you to be able to see your fingertips. Position 3, you're going to step forward with your non-dominant leg. As a right-handed person, that's my left leg, stepping forward. The other thing in position 3 is that when you step forward, I want your heel to come off the ground on that back leg. Cool? All right, back to position 1. Position 2. And position 3. Pull that back heel up. Got it? Let's do it one more time. 1, 2, and 3. All right, cool. Now we're going to move this around a little bit.
So this is a drill from the martial art known as Krav Maga. You probably are already practicing your 3 positions, but if you haven't already done so, this is definitely something that you could join us with. Dr. McCracken is going to put us into motion right now, so move a little space out of this, move a little furniture out so you have some space and follow us.
So before we move around, I'm going to set some positions on the floor. Over here is going to be position 1. So when I say 1, you're going to run over here and just stand in that first position, hands down. When I say 2, you'll run over here. And this is our second position, hands up. And when I say 3, you'll run over here and get into our third position, hands up, stepping forward. In the meantime, you're just going to jog loose around the space. Cool? Cool. All right, let's move. Nice and easy. Relax. Shake the arms out a little bit. Get nice and comfortable. We're checking body parts as we move. Checking for anything that's creaky, anything that's mad at you. So you want to pay attention to that while you train. And 1. Nice. All right, move. And as you guys are moving around, you're doing a great job. You're not following each other in a circle. That's great. I want you to pay attention. Don't run into each other. It's part of what we're developing. It's our awareness skills. And 2. Keeping it easy right now, working in progression. Good. Move. 3. Go, 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 go. And good. Move. 2. And move. The adult version of Simon Says. 1. Go, 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 go. Andy wins. Move. And 3. Nice. Now, before we move again, I'm going to give you one more command, and that's going to be clear. On clear, you'll stop into that third position, and then you're going to move back and look as you go, and then we'll move again. Got it?
Got it.
All right, cool. All right, let's move. 1. Move. Clear. Good. Look as you go. Nice. And move. 3. Move. You can take it backwards as well as you move around, paying attention. And 2. Go, 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 go. Nice. Move. Clear. Move. 1. Now we're testing what you can remember. Good. Move. 1. Give Andy a do-over. Good. Move. Clear. Nice. Look where you're going. And move. 3. Go, 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 go. Good. And move. Take it around in different directions. Nice and easy. You might even loosen up some arms here. Work the wrists and the fingers. Make sure you're not getting tense. 2. Go, go, go.
Cool. Can we do one more?
Absolutely.
Do one more.
All right. Move around. And clear. And time. Good job, guys. Nicely done.
Beautiful. Well, as you can tell, this is a great exercise, not just for your body. It definitely got my heart rate up and my breath going, but it's also a good exercise for your concentration, for your sense of focus, and just being aware of where you are in relationship to other people. Now, this is just an example of some of the drills that we learn in a martial art known as Krav Maga. And it keeps us on our toes. It keeps us ready to move or to deal with a situation, to get into the right position given an unexpected attack from another person. We're going to be learning a lot more about these kinds of exercises, and that's coming up right now. In Hebrew, Krav Maga means hand combat, or maybe hand-to-hand combat. In fact, it is the hand-to-hand combat that is being taught to the Israeli Defense Force and many other special forces units around the world. But it's also a martial art that's been taught to civilians and just everyday people for fitness as well. Now, Krav Maga is a young martial art. In fact, it's so young, so new in the history of martial arts, it is not quite yet a full-blown martial arts style at all. Instead, it's a very direct system, a method of fighting when fighting is unavoidable. The whole system began with a man named Emil Lichtenfeld, who in the 1930s was living in Slovakia. He had been a young boxer, a gymnast. His father taught martial arts, and he found himself in the position of having to defend himself and some of his neighbors from anti-Semitic gangs. And he discovered, to his dismay, that his boxing and his martial arts that he'd studied did not always work in a street fight. So he went back to develop very direct methods. What works in a fight? What works when somebody is really intent on hurting you? How can you make that stop and go away? How can you get away safely? And that's the birth of Krav Maga. We have Dr. Tammy McCracken, certified instructor in Krav Maga, one of only 3 women in the U.S. to hold expert ranking, coordinator of the women's division of Krav Maga Global, PhD in psychology, and consultant to law enforcement and public safety organizations worldwide. All of the exercises that we'll be learning in this lesson are things that you can do, so I'm really hoping that you're getting up out of your chair and joining us. I'm joined here in the class with Jesse and Andy and our instructor, Dr. Tammy McCracken. Now, I've introduced you as Dr. McCracken, but is there something else you would like to be called when we're in training?
Tammy is fine.
Tammy is fine. So Tammy's going to lead us through a whole bunch of different exercises. So I've introduced Krav Maga as being what I would call not quite a traditional martial arts style yet. And one of the reasons why I say this is because it lacks certain aspects that traditional martial arts do, like a deep philosophical tradition and a sense of ritual, bowing and maybe creeds, etc., things like that. But there are certainly things that Krav Maga has that's common to all martial arts, like fundamentals and basics, right? So where do we begin with that?
So we're going to go back to the beginning of what we did in our warm-up, because inside of that are our 3 primary stances. So we'll start there. Start there.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to let you work with Andy and Jesse, and I'll come back in a minute.
All right, cool. Okay, so back to the game that we played in the beginning to get warmed up. Inside of that game are the 3 stances that we use, so you essentially already have them. The very first position that we took, which was position 1, the hands are down, the feet are comfortable underneath your body. This is our passive stance. And each one of these stances that we're going to hit, all 3 of them, reflect a mindset or a headspace that we train from. So the passive stance, we train from this because sometimes we're caught flat-footed, unprepared for what's coming, and so we want to have the opportunity to train from this place. The second stance is our semi-passive, or we could flip it and say semi-ready stance, and those hands come up and guard for that. We played a little bit with this earlier about positioning, but we want to make sure that those elbows are going to be nice and open in this position, not here, because it doesn't do you any good. You can't defend anything. You're already at your own face. And if they're too far out, you lose range and flexibility. So we want to have a nice, slightly open outside a 90-degree angle on those elbows. And you need to be able to see your fingertips, because if they're down here, again, your head's wide open. So this is our semi-passive position. The next position, our third one, is our fighting stance or our ready stance. And all we're going to do from semi-passive is step forward with your non-dominant foot. So as a right-handed person, that's going to be my left leg. Still keeping that open position in the elbows. And then turning sideways, you can see what my back foot is doing. When I step forward, that heel is off the ground. And there's a reason for that. And we'll go over that here in just a second. So let's go ahead and go back to passive, semi-passive, and then step forward into your fighting stance. So we step forward into the fighting stance because this also reflects the head space. And I'm going to borrow Jesse for a second. In a semi-passive position, what happens is this guy approaches me that I'm uncomfortable with. I can get about here. but I don't have time to move my feet, so semi-ready, semi-passive. And then moving into the fighting stance, I've got a little bit more time, a little bit more distance from him. He's concerning to me as he moves forward, and I'm going to step forward in this position. It signals a lot of information, and the best way to show that is by showing the opposite. So what happens if I step back?
Hey.
It gives him a lot of information. I'm intimidated, I'm concerned, I'm maybe not as mentally prepared as I wanted to be, and it might make me look like a better target. The opposite of that is if he moves in and I step forward, oh, I've stepped into that space. Maybe he's going to pick somebody else instead. So, yeah, and the best self-defense win is the self-defense situation that never actually happens. So if he can just walk away from me because he's decided I'm not an awesome target to pick for a victim, then that's the highest order win. So we're going to run these really quickly again. Passive, semi-passive, fighting stance. Cool. One more time. Passive, semi-passive, and fighting stance. Awesome. All right. We've got our positions, but now we also need to be able to hit or strike. So we're going to move into some combative work. The first thing that we're going to deal with are the hands, all right, using our weapons above the waist. And we're going to work with palm strikes. One of the things that I want you to do first is go ahead and open up your hands, and we're going to clap into our own hands a little bit. And I want you to feel the impact across that heel of the hand. So really drive into it for a second. Cool. A little bit of sensory information here for your body. All right. That impact space, when we actually go to hitting, this is where I want to feel it. You've programmed your body to understand where you want to have impact if you have to use your hands in this way. We're going to work this out of our fighting stance. So go ahead and step forward. Non-dominant leg is up. Hands are up in guard. And we're going to work with the non-dominant hand first, calling that a jab. And as I strike out, reaching forward, I'm going to put my whole body behind that strike and then recoil back. Our cross is our dominant hand. So in this case, it's the right. And then it comes out and strikes and recoils back. Power generation is important. I want every strike to potentially be the only one I have to throw. So in this position, when I throw that right cross, I'm going to put my body behind it. So rotating, get those big muscles in your glutes involved, and using a little bit of momentum on the rotation of the heel. So we're going to put them together now and do a quick jab cross combination. Cool? All right, into that fighting stance. Jab cross, and then back to this position. Jab cross, and back to this position. One more. Jab cross. Nice. Now, one of the things when we start to deal with striking is structure, and how your body goes together is super important. So I'm going to borrow Andy and put her in her fighting stance. And I'm going to actually ask her to do something incorrect. And she doesn't do it, but we're going to have her do it so you guys can see this. Lots of people, when they first learn to hit, like to flare their elbows out. It just physically feels, I think, a bit more comfortable. But structurally, it bleeds power. So when she strikes like this, if she reaches out with that cross and recoils back, and then if she tucks her elbows in, see how much more of her body comes with it. So this is a much more powerful position. The other thing that happens, we're constantly assessing what our dynamics are. Why are we doing this? If this is an encounter, an ambush situation on the street, she doesn't know how I'm armed or not armed. So if I've got a knife on me and those elbows are flared and she's just trying to send me a visual warning and I can draw, I've got a lovely open space I can get into. But if her elbows are tucked in and I come in, all she has to do is drop that elbow in and she's already in a defensive maneuver without having to be a specific skill. So elbows are tucked in, nice and tight to the body, better power generation and better safety dynamics. We're going to put this on a set of pads now so that she gets the opportunity to really drive this through and put some power and some impact behind it. And the cool thing about training like this is that everybody's working. So my pad holder's working as well. I'm going to have Jesse put himself in his fighting stance. And notice the position here, it's exactly the same as if he were just in a normal fighting stance getting ready to hit. So he's programming his body that this is that position he always wants to be in. Andy, go ahead and get in position. She's going to put herself in fighting stance as well. And the first thing I want you to do is test your range. Cool. And go ahead and reach that jab out and stick it for a second on the pad. So if you notice this position here, she's driving forward into the pad and recoil because she's coming into that palm heel, and that's what we worked on before. So I'm just gonna let her throw 2 or 3 jab cross sets on the pads. Nice, one more. Very good. All right, so as she's doing that, you guys at home, you guys can do this as well, and just work with her. We'll do a couple of more, and go. And go. Nice, one more. Very good. All right, and time. Okay, yeah, I know, right? And this is one of the things that's nice about this, and mentally, people when they start training oftentimes get into that, like, I'm hitting things and maybe people, and I don't feel good about that. And once you realize how much fun it is to actually start hitting stuff, then you get a lot of big smiles, and it's just a whole lot of fun to hit things, frankly. All right, so we're gonna shift. Hands above, weapons above the waist, we got that down. And now we're gonna go to weapons below the waist. So you can lose those for a second. Same rules apply. Here, this is about power generation, getting those big muscles associated and involved in what we're gonna do in our striking. We wanna do the same thing when we go to weapons below the waist. So now comes into a conversation about range. And I'm gonna borrow you because you're so much taller than I am. So reach out and put your fingertips on my forehead. Watch this. It's a remarkable problem here, all right? He can do all kinds of things to me, and if I'm trying to strike back just with my hands, I got nothing. However, if he's trying to reach out with a palm strike, like so, he can touch me, I can still touch him, but it looks like that, okay? So, working with our legs. You cool?
Cool.
You do have a cup on, yes?
Yes,
all right. So,
I'm laughing because this was a question as I was taking martial arts. I was taking Krav Maga classes. That was the question that we got asked every night after the kick came along. That's right. You are wearing a cup cover. Yeah. All right. So there's a lot of stuff more that I know we want to cover, more kicking, more lower body combatives. But I have one question before we finish up this segment.
Sure.
And that is, I noticed that you've got us all set up with open palm.
Yes.
Which is different than many other martial arts approach it, usually with a closed fist like this, or sometimes setting up for the elbows. Why the open palm?
So open hands are really flexible. I can do a whole lot of things if I'm in this position, so I'll square up with you. So if we're here, and if you reach out for a strike, and I'm open-handed, then I don't have to open my hand to get here, I'm already there. So this is all about efficiency. I want to be as absolutely efficient as possible, and my open hands help with that. The other thing is that the bones in our hands are actually pretty stinking fragile. And if I come up against somebody who knows this is coming, if you drop your chin in like a MMA fighter would, and I throw this strike, this is what's gonna happen. You're gonna be pissed, but my hand's gonna be broken.
Got it.
However, with an open palm, I can still make some decent impact here, and I have lots of flexibility in my targets. I can go to your eyes, I can go to your ears.
I'm going to cover up all the way. So a lot of practicality to Krav Maga, and that really is the hallmark of this martial arts style. We're going to be learning a lot more techniques, including the lower body combatives, and that's coming up right now. Now, different martial arts styles and different teachers will call our fists and our elbows, knees, and feet by different names. Some styles, some teachers call these weapons, some call them tools. In the terminology of Krav Maga, I've heard you call them something else. What do we call these? Combatives. Combatives.
Yeah.
So when Tammy talks about the combatives, she's talking about her weapons, her tools here. And we've covered so far open palm. Now we're going to
groin kicks.
We're going to groin kicks. On that note, I'm going to leave Tammy with Jesse and Andy, and I'll be back in a minute.
All right, so I'm going to borrow Jesse because
sounds great.
Yeah. Groin kicks are sort of the piece de resistance of Krav Maga, just because the groin it's a really good target. It's a really nice way to stop somebody in their tracks, possibly even drop them. And Andy and I will both tell you by experience, they do work on women as well, just not quite as effective. So what I want to be able to do is effectively reach out and touch him so that he doesn't want to touch me back, and coming in and driving that shot. What I'm going to ask Jesse to do is grab the tombstone, if you would, for me.
Sure.
The mechanics of this are pretty simple. We already have, we'll do it from this side first. we already have the pieces of it because we're just working out of our fighting stance and we're using the same power generation we were talking about before. Rather than rotate through this way with that palm strike, I'm just going to bring in and use the glutes down here and drive that hip forward. It's kind of like a laser sighting system. If I can point my hip bone at the target, then the structure of the bones in my legs are going to line up pretty well and drive through. So from here, driving in that strike. Putting that hip forward, turning that base heel under a little bit just makes me more stable. And then pushing off the ball of my foot. And then I'm just swinging that whole leg kind of like a bat or a club. Bringing it up. The knee's going to break a little bit, meaning it's going to bend a little bit. Coming forward, up, and striking. My goal in this particular version of the groin kick is to strike somewhere between here and here on my body. That's the range of my weapon. One more time. And that's the strike. So we're going to do that, what we call a dry drill, a couple of times. And that's just getting the body mechanics down without having to worry about impact. So get yourself in your fighting stance for me. Cool. And then we're going to do this in small pieces. When I say one, all I want you to do is load that hip for me a little bit and make sure you've got good contact with the ball of your foot on the ground so you don't get up on your tippy toe because you lose power there. So we're in just a natural fighting stance. Cool. And one. Good. Release. And one. And I'm going to watch. And one. Nice. So now on one, we're going to go here. And on two, we're going to push off and just bring that foot underneath you a little bit so you're balanced on that front foot, and we're going to go two. So we're going to load on one, and two, and come back. Again, 1 and 2, and come back. And notice that you guys do it again for me. 1, 2. Hands are up in guard. All right, so we don't want to cycle that hand through like we'll do sometimes in other fighting systems because, again, this is all about self-defense, and this leaves me wide open. So I'm going to let these guys play a little bit. If you don't have a partner and you don't have a pad to work with, that's all right. You can still continue to do the dry drill and working the pieces, 1, 2, and resetting it. But I'm going to let Jesse grab the tombstone for me again. And we're going to talk a little bit about holding pads in case you do have one so that you're holding safely. So he's going to hold nice and tight here so there's no wiggle room for this to drive up into his thumb. His feet are going to be neutral or a little bit wider than his hips, and his hips are back. If you hold the pad in that split stance, then we risk running into a knee with a misplaced kick. So nice and comfortable. And this is just a little bit lower than the groin. Cool. All right, so set up. And I'm going to let Andy throw 3 consecutive kicks and then move away and scan. Do that clearing action we did in our warm-up. Cool? All right, go. And move back and scan. Good job. All right, we're going to do that one more time. And this time I want you to take, I'm going to have her do a bit of a tactical scan. So we move straight back. We're looking at our potential threat, and we're moving back and looking as we go. But if we're in an environment where there's other people, and we're looking for where the exit may be, then we're going to move back on that circular scan. Cool? So she can see more of a 180-degree angle of her environment. So 3 and go. Ready? Hit! And move back and clear. Nice. Very good. Thanks, guys. Okay, so you can set that down for just a second. We will come back to it again. When we are dealing with combatives, we are dealing with range. So we played with that a little bit before with Jesse, and Andy's taller than me too. Everybody's taller than me. So I am out of everybody's range with my hands almost always. In this position, I can reach him here. But if we change the range dynamic a little bit, I'm going to bring Andy in because they're a little bit more equally matched. We'll leave you guys together. Okay. And get a little bit so you're right about there on an elbow break, a little bit closer to her. Good. All right, so from here, Andy can reach out and touch him back. All right, so she can use her hands. But if Jesse gets even closer to her, like he puts his hands on her shoulders, now try the groin kick from here. It's just not very effective. So we're going to adjust everything based on range. Yeah. So in this position, she's going to use the same body mechanics that we used for the kick, but now we're going to use a different weapon. We're going to let the knee come in. And there's a bit of a misnomer. People tend to think we're hitting with the knee. We're actually making contact just above it with that nice, solid, fleshy part, lower part of the quad. So if you get a little closer to her, just go ahead and demonstrate that knee, rising it up into the groin. Nice. Good. One more time. Yep, there we go. And ding. Yeah, there's the cup. Cup check. Okay, so it's basically the same body mechanics, so we're going to run that dry as well. Getting in this position, put yourself in your fighting stance here. And on one, we're going to load the same way. And now I'm just going to lift and drive that leg up so the knee is what's making contact. And one. Set it back down. Good. And one. One more time. And one. Cool. Got it? All right, nice. Now, let's take a second and play with putting those things together a little bit. And I mentioned earlier, I think that's a whole lot of fun to hit things. Okay? So I'm going to let you stand as statue. Put you front and center. And I'm going to let Andy work targeting. Okay. So to work with the palm strikes and the knee and the kick, and just work your way around and find different angles and targets. This is a really good drill. You can do this by yourself, just imagining the statue that you're working on, or you can get somebody at home who's willing to let you hit them gently and work your way around. This helps, and all she's working with are those 3 combatives that we did, finding good targets for them. Looking for good places that she can hit from different angles with all of those weapons that we were working with. And she's got really good body mechanics behind every strike. All that power generation we talked about, it's all in there. Nice. And time. Cool. So it's a great way to practice getting these skills down and getting comfortable moving your body and thinking about good places to hurt people. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do is take those pieces of information and make them available to us in what we call a worst case scenario. So ideally, the best self-defense situation, the best win is when you never have to go physical with anybody. Once in a while you get caught off guard or the ambush comes in too quickly and you're caught in that last ditch space in the timeline, the very end dynamic. So, choke me. Cool. You all right?
Yeah, great.
Excellent. So, choke defense. Here. We have those pieces mostly for this already as far as the combatives go. The combatives are skills that we set up. We learn those in a space in our brain like an island. And then we're going to develop some other skills here, like other side, a plucking action. All right, so when we get into this, we're building another island, another set of skills. And then eventually what we want to do is build mental bridges between them so I can jump back and forth.
I'm noticing how all of the things, even though we've only basically learned 3 main combatives, a palm strike, a knee, and a kick, that you've been able to use them in such combinations that they can become extremely versatile, right? And I
Absolutely.
like the idea of this last-ditch scenario. We're going to be learning a whole lot more of these kinds of combative skills in future lessons. One of the things I want to point out right now is the safety feature of doing this. You can do this in a mirror. You can do this using Dr. McCracken, myself, one of the other people, as sort of your model partner. But if you use a real life partner, start out soft, start out slow, start out gentle. The reason why Tammy can kick and knee Jesse is because he's wearing a cup, and this makes it safer. So if your partner, if your family member is not wearing a cup, you don't want to go in for the kill, so to speak. No.
No.
Safety is always the first concern, because you want to be able to come back and practice again another day. And that's what we're going to do in the next lesson.